The Vorthari drop shuttle hit Earth's atmosphere like a dagger through silk. Commander Thrix stood rigid, triple hearts pounding in lockstep as the blue swirl of the alien sky engulfed the viewport. Behind him, 27 of the Empire's most disciplined soldiers sat in pressurized harnesses, armored exosuits humming quietly. Each was bred for conquest, chemically conditioned for loyalty, and impervious to most known biotoxins. Earth was catalogued as a Category Zeta biosphere, mildly aggressive, densely oxygenated, no native spacefaring resistance. Command had called it a soft annex. Thrix had reviewed the intel, a humid, mid-level gravity orb, populated by creatures with inefficient circulatory systems and primitive combustion-based transport. The only instructions were, establish forward control, expect minimal resistance. They landed in a parking lot behind a strip mall outside Cleveland at 14:23 local time. A Wendy's stood crookedly to the east, advertising spicy chicken sandwiches and Frosties in sun-bleached red plastic. The strip mall was otherwise quiet, the lot partially flooded from last night's rain. Their arrival cracked the pavement and shattered the windows of a chiropractor's office. Thrix emerged first, plasma rifle slung over his shoulder, boots sinking half an inch into soft asphalt. Then he froze. The scent. Not a chemical weapon, not radiation, something more insidious, invisible, and everywhere. He blinked through his helmet's filters and saw microscopic yellow particles dancing on the air currents. His armor's environmental scanner chirped warnings: high particulate density, organic compounds unclassified, oxygen concentration 21%. Too late. Private Kell's exosuit began spasming, his 6 limbs jerked out at unnatural angles, and he let out a garbled howl before collapsing in the mud. Sergeant Veer, trying to stabilize him, immediately vomited through her faceplate. The fluid hissed as it hit her rebreather. Within 90 seconds, every soldier was down. Some convulsed, some clawed at their helmets, trying to override filtration systems that had never been tested against airborne botanical pollen. 2 tried to drag themselves back into the shuttle, only to collapse twitching at the ramp. A chorus of panicked moans filled the comms. Thrix crawled toward the emergency panel on his forearm. His vision blurred. The noise of his own thoughts became unbearable, like 1,000 whispering voices. He punched the distress signal blindly, voice slurred, skin burning under the armor. This world inhales fire. In the back of an ambulance, Miles Taylor sipped the last of a lukewarm coffee, glanced at the monitor, and sighed. Cleveland Dispatch had just flagged a non-human incident by a gas station on the edge of Parma. The words, military emergency, environmental hazard, and possible mass casualty flashed on his tablet, alongside a live map of a crater-like heat signature. "I'm not saying it's aliens," said his partner, Mara, adjusting her gloves with clinical boredom. "But if it's aliens, I'm driving." "You always drive." "Because you back into hydrants." Miles rolled his eyes. The siren screamed to life as Mara whipped the ambulance around and floored it toward the site. They arrived 13 minutes later. The Vorthari ship still hissed faintly, heat distortion warping the air around its hull. Bodies lay sprawled across the lot, limbs tangled, armor twitching. Several of them emitted soft choking sounds through helmets now half fogged with internal vapor. "Holy hell," Miles whispered. "Are they dead?" "Nope," Mara said, already hauling a jump bag out of the back. "One's trying to crawl toward the garbage can." "Should we wait for hazmat?" "You want to explain to CNN why we let a bunch of dying aliens choke to death behind a PetSmart?" "Fair point." She approached slowly, hands raised. One of the creatures, huge, 6-limbed, glistening with sweat, reached toward her with a trembling arm. Its translator drone whirred to life, a blinking cube barely larger than a Rubik's Cube. "Remove the air," it screeched. "Your sky it bites." Mara frowned. "Miles, bring the oxygen tanks." Initial treatment was guesswork. Whatever breathable compound the Vorthari used, it wasn't doing them any favors here. They had high fevers, skin rashes like heat welts, and erratic neurological responses. One alien tried to sedate himself by inhaling a car air freshener. Another wept violently after hearing the electronic chime of a Walgreens sliding door. "We're looking at some kind of systemic shock," Mara said as she inserted an IV into the shallow crook of one soldier's upper limb. I think the pollen's triggering a full-blown allergic cascade. Add the oxygen level, they're completely overstimulated. You're telling me aliens invaded Earth and got hay fever? Looks like it. By hour 3, 4 paramedic units, 2 hazmat teams, a mobile ER tent, and 1 linguist from Case Western Reserve had arrived. The translator drone, overburdened with dialect mapping, began to confuse English idioms. It referred to IV drips as liquid restraint appendages and called the ambulance a rolling pain coffin. The soldiers, once comically terrifying, now resembled massive toddlers suffering from a bad flu. One curled into fetal position near a drainpipe. Another had wedged itself under a bench to escape the sunlight. Mara went triage by triage, delivering Benadryl through modified auto-injectors, monitoring vitals, and snapping at Homeland Security agents who wanted to detain the aliens instead of help them. By evening, Thrix was conscious again. Barely. Medic, he rasped through the drone. This planet is a death maze. You're in Ohio, Mara said, pressing a wet cloth to his skin. It's worse in Florida. Thrix blinked slowly, then violently sneezed. We were told soft conquest, no resistance. Yeah, no, you landed during ragweed season. Is this weaponized? You landed behind a KFC. What do you think? Thrix groaned. My bladder is trying to exit through my eyes. That's called nausea. May I have the mercy blast? We don't do mercy blasts here. We do fluids and antihistamines. Thrix blinked again. You breathe this every day? Mara gave a tired nod. Yep. Welcome to Earth, big guy. He whimpered. By 10 p.m., 4 of the Vorthari were stable enough to move. 2 were critical, and 1 had apparently gone catatonic from olfactory overload, triggered by a vent from a nearby pizza shop. Cleveland Medical Center agreed to take 5 of them under secure quarantine. It took 6 humans to roll 1 alien onto a stretcher. The other crews applauded as Mara guided the first wheezing Vorthari into the back of her ambulance. Inside, Thrix clutched the oxygen valve like a lifeline. Why do you not wear suits? He asked hoarsely. You are not dead. Mara glanced at him. We're not invincible, we're just used to it. You're immune to fire air? We get flu shots and buy tissues in bulk. The translator paused, then hesitantly replied, Earthlings are forged in the lungs of chaos. She chuckled. Nah, we're just stubborn. The siren wailed again as the ambulance sped toward the hospital. Mara leaned back, cracked her neck, and muttered to herself. I swear, if I have to explain allergies to another alien warlord, I'm charging interstellar hazard pay. Cleveland Medical Center's South Annex wasn't built for interstellar triage, but by 3 a.m., it was housing 5 barely stabilized Vorthari soldiers, and the staff had collectively decided not to ask too many questions. Between the CIA agent loitering in radiology and the decontamination tent outside the ER, the air inside was thick with suppressed panic and the scent of hand sanitizer, which, unfortunately, set off another alien. Room 402's vitals monitor began shrieking just as Mara arrived with her second cup of vending machine coffee. Private Jernick had bolted upright, 3 limbs braced against the side rails, gasping and thrashing. Shut it off, he wheezed, yanking at his IV line. The box screams death chants. Hold still, Mara barked, grabbing his wrist forelimb and pressing a call button. It's a heart monitor. It's not killing you. It counts down. That's a pulse rate. A nurse dashed in with a sedative, hesitated when faced with the alien's anatomy, then handed it to Mara without a word. She jabbed it into what passed for Jernick's shoulder. The alien slumped with a groan, wheezing through his now pink-tinged breathing filter. Can someone find out what sets them off next time? Mara muttered. Or do I just have to keep playing galactic babysitter? The nurse looked ready to cry. Mara patted her on the arm. Welcome to Tuesday. 3 hours later, a delegation of officials descended CDC reps, NASA biologists, military brass with questions no one could answer. A xenolinguist named Dr. Mallory Roth took charge of the translator drone and began asking Thrix structured questions about the Vorthari physiology. It took him 6 attempts to explain the concept of a nasal passage. We do not filter the world through holes in our face, Thrix said, clearly insulted. Well, we do, Mara said dryly. And most of us don't cry when the air smells like grass. Grass, he hissed, as if naming an enemy, spawns the yellow poison. Dr. Roth tried, diplomatically, to ask about the Vorthari's environmental resistance thresholds. Thrix, still hooked to oxygen and IV saline, described the Earth atmosphere as chemically hyper-aggressive, with neurological intrusion factors at suicidal levels. Miles, standing nearby, whispered to Mara, "So, pollen's basically mustard gas to them?" "Pretty much." One of the military reps frowned. "Is it really just allergies?" "They've got acute hypersensitivity to airborne particulates, overstimulation from oxygen, and zero immunity to our microbes," Mara said. "One of them sneezed so hard he dislocated a rib. We had to realign it under sedation." "Why didn't they wear environmental suits?" Thrix interjected, "We believed Earth was soft." Mara crossed her arms. "Guess your intel skipped spring." Over the next 2 days, the Vorthari's recovery continued in awkward, uncertain fits. Private Kell developed a secondary infection from bacterial exposure. The wound site had to be cleaned every 6 hours. The attending physician, Dr. Reyes, discovered through trial and error that their dermal layer reacted violently to lidocaine, but tolerated diluted ethanol, not without complaint. Jernick had a full-blown panic attack when someone rolled a meal cart past his room carrying fish. The translator's best approximation was, "Why is the corpse smiling?" Veer suffered sleep regression. Every time the hallway lights dimmed, she woke up screeching, convinced the Earth was entering a dormant predatory phase. Mara had to spend an hour convincing her that the sun would, in fact, rise again. "Your orbital pattern is chaos," Veer said. "The dark comes without mercy. We have clocks. Use the clock." "I do not trust numbers." "I get that," Mara muttered, injecting a fresh dose of corticosteroids. Despite the chaos, progress came in inches. Lab techs analyzed blood samples. Pharmacists compounded allergy medications with adjusted ratios. Infectious disease experts submitted 3 separate papers titled Immunological Catastrophe, a Case Study. The aliens remained deeply unsettled. They had, after all, landed with conquest in mind, and now Earth's ecosystem was slowly dismantling them. On the 3rd morning, a translated letter arrived. It was dictated by Thrix, with the help of the translator drone and a legal pad, and addressed to the United Earth Council, which technically didn't exist. The document was half confession, half scientific marvel. The title, stamped in formal Vorthari command glyphs, was "The Planet That Breathes Fire." The letter began, "We came to dominate. We expected silence and submission. Instead, we inhaled suffering. Your world is a furnace of spores and invisible predators. Your air sings with chemical violence. We now understand your resilience not as biology, but as a monument to perpetual agony." By paragraph 4, it had shifted tone entirely. "We request no retaliation. We request mercy. We have tasted your world, and we are afraid." Dr. Roth passed the letter along to the State Department. The memo that followed began with, "Immediate ceasefire. All forward operations suspended. Request medevac priority." No one argued. That afternoon, Mara found Thrix sitting upright for the first time, connected to a portable oxygen mixer and looking marginally less green. "I have recovered 42% of baseline function," he said. "Good," Mara said. "You'll be strong enough to sign discharge papers." "Does that end my punishment?" She smirked. "It's not punishment. It's Cleveland." He studied her in silence for a moment. "You endure this. Willingly. I have a mortgage." He gestured vaguely toward the window. "The sky is made of insects. Pollen. They enter the lungs. Welcome to allergy season." Thrix stared at the EpiPen she was holding. "You inject stimulant poison to survive it?" "Antihistamines." "It's poison. A helpful poison." There was a pause. "You are terrifying," he whispered. She patted his arm gently. "You'll get used to us." He flinched. Later that night, a group of medics gathered in the break room, half watching the news coverage. A blurry photo of the Vorthari drop pod had gone viral. Memes followed. One showed an alien curled in a fetal ball with the caption, touched grass, regret everything. Mara sipped from a fresh coffee, legs propped on a chair. A nurse glanced at her. You were on scene, right? Yeah. What was it like? Mara rubbed her eyes. Imagine if a group of biologically enhanced super soldiers landed ready for war, then immediately passed out from sniffing too hard. The room laughed. She didn't. Miles passed her a protein bar. You sleep yet? No. You okay? She looked toward the corridor. We had 6 asthma attacks today, 2 kids with food allergies, 1 guy who swallowed a vape cartridge, and 5 elite alien soldiers trying not to die from ragweed. She bit into the bar and leaned back. Yeah, I'm fine. Thrix insisted on wearing his armor to the diplomatic briefing. The problem was that his armor had partially melted after landing, and the rest of it had been removed forcefully, during a fevered hallucination in which he'd become convinced the chest plate was a sentient parasite. He had bitten a nurse, apologies were made. The hospital had settled on a compromise, a set of modified surgical scrubs, triple sewn to accommodate his limbs, along with a disposable gown he refused to tie at the back. Someone had hand-painted his unit insignia on the chest with a marker to maintain psychological stability. His translator drone hovered just above his shoulder, flickering with slight electrical fatigue. Commander, Dr. Roth said, guiding him through the hospital's east wing. We've arranged for a live stream to your command vessel. The connection is secure. You'll speak, they'll listen. Please try to avoid sneezing during the opening statement. I cannot control the sky. Understood. They arrived in conference room 3B, recently cleared of therapy cats and fruit snacks. A NASA flag had been duct-taped to the wall behind a podium. 2 State Department representatives sat opposite a flat panel screen, showing a delay-staggered image of the Vorthari fleet's command ship, hulking and distant, like a wounded god. Thrix sat with great effort. A roll of tissue sat beside him, like a diplomatic offering. The briefing lasted 47 minutes. He opened with a shaky declaration of surrender, coughed halfway through the word contingency, and had to pause for an oxygen adjustment. He explained the biological incompatibility, described Earth's atmosphere as a constant state of neurochemical assault, and offered detailed telemetry data, proving that 1 soldier had gone temporarily blind from staring at a daffodil. The humans, for their part, tried to maintain composure. One of the State Department reps began taking notes so vigorously she snapped her pen in half. The Vorthari command remained eerily silent for most of it. At one point, a holographic aide appeared in frame and began adjusting environmental sensors aboard the ship, likely in disbelief. Thrix concluded with an admission. Your species endures environmental violence as a baseline condition. You are not weak. You are sculpted by cruelty. Then he added, unprompted, I once believed firestorms were the pinnacle of planetary aggression. Your heir disagrees. Mara didn't attend the briefing. She was too busy helping Jernick into the elevator after his attempted escape. He'd wandered out of his room wearing nothing but a heart monitor and a stolen lab coat, muttering about reconnaissance and trying to map the hospital's HVAC system. 2 interns found him staring at the vending machine, convinced it was a food worship altar. It hums when I offer coins, he told Mara, as she gently wheeled him back toward his room. It is pleased. That's not a god, that's a broken snack coil. It refused the crackers. It hates everyone. She got him back into bed, scanned his vitals, slightly elevated pulse, mild dehydration, and cortisol levels that would have sent most humans into adrenal collapse, and pulled the blinds shut. You're not going anywhere until your internal temperature stops fluctuating like a weather app. Jernick blinked. I feared you would imprison us. You're in a hospital. If you stop licking the walls, you'll be out faster. He looked genuinely confused. Is this mercy? More like health insurance paperwork. By the end of the week, the hospital staff had developed a rotation system to manage the Vorthari patients. Special allergen filters were installed. Meals were replaced with protein gel packs after an unfortunate incident involving mashed potatoes and an allergic seizure. The staff psychologist, Dr. Nina Adler, began working with the translator drone to address the Vorthari's trauma-related symptoms, particularly their irrational terror of elevators and beeping sounds. They interpret every machine as a threat, Adler explained to a briefing group. They think we train our technology to alert us to suffering. Not wrong, Mara muttered. Still, progress was visible. Veer had regained motor function in all limbs and now spent afternoons watching weather reports in horrified awe. Kel was relearning how to walk after 2 days of muscular spasms. Jernick had developed a fascination with cleaning supplies and requested to study the ritual of Windex. One morning, Thrix requested to visit the maternity ward. After some debate and 2 full hours of screening protocols, Mara accompanied him to the edge of the viewing glass where newborns lay swaddled beneath gentle warming lights. He stared in silence. "You produce more?" he asked. "We reproduce, yes. Into this? Every day." He stared harder. "They are so small. They grow." He shook his head. "You forge warriors in atmospheric torture. Some of them go into accounting. I cannot tell if your species is brave or simply numb." Mara smiled, arms folded. "Both." Later that day, word came down from the Vorthari High Command. The Vanguard was to be extracted. No further landings would occur until a comprehensive analysis of Earth's biosphere was completed. Possibly never. A full retreat. Not out of fear of human resistance, but because of spring. The extraction shuttle would arrive in 48 hours, outfitted with adaptive containment fields and sterile airlocks. The Vorthari were going home, sick, shaken, and deeply changed. That evening, as Mara was charting vitals in the nurse's station, a nurse handed her a small box. "Alien guy said it was for you." Inside was a folded piece of composite fabric, part of Thrix's original uniform, carefully cut and stitched with the hospital symbol. Next to it was a note written in shakily translated English. "To the sky-forged healer. You endure what breaks us. Thank you for your care in the fire. May your lungs always prevail." She read it twice, blinked, and tucked it into her jacket pocket. Then she got up and ran a fever check on Jernick, who was convinced the digital thermometer was a surveillance probe. The extraction craft hovered silently above the Cleveland skyline just after dawn. It didn't descend with the violence of the original landing, no concussive shockwave, no cracked asphalt. This time, it lowered like a solemn apology, its form wrapped in a sterile haze, engines whispering in frequencies outside human hearing. A thin veil of fog clung to the hospital grounds as Mara watched from the roof. Next to her stood Thrix, wearing a protective suit tailored from Earth lab materials and reinforced with padding scrounged from shipping pallets. His frame, though still gaunt, had regained some authority, but his posture was unmistakably subdued. "Extraction in 23 minutes, he said quietly, eyes scanning the rooftop helipad. "Feeling better?" Mara asked. "Physically, yes. Spiritually, I am fractured. That's just Cleveland." She expected him to chuckle. Instead, he tilted his head. "I will never see wind the same way again," he said. Behind them, the others were being prepped. Veer sat cross-legged under a thermal canopy, performing what looked like a meditative breathing ritual through a re-engineered CPAP mask. Jernick paced nervously, his small bag of personal effects clutched tightly, including, apparently, a laminated pamphlet on hospital hygiene. Kel sat quietly, nodding along to a Spotify playlist that an intern had made him titled "Alien Chill Beats to Heal To." A medical team wrapped up final checks. The translators had been integrated directly into the Vorthari evac suits, though the drones still hovered nearby as backup. One had painted a smiley face on its casing. Mara had no idea who had done it. Probably Miles. "I thought you'd be glad to leave," she said. "I am. But," Thrix looked toward the city skyline, "this planet changed us. We were made to conquer. Now we fear wind and moisture. You learned adaptation. That's not failure." He exhaled slowly through his suit's filter. "We expected weapons. You gave us the atmosphere. And you almost died from pollen." He gave a slow nod. "Terrifying." Mara adjusted her jacket. The wind picked up slightly, swirling with the faint scent of cut grass and distant lake water. She watched Thrix reflexively tighten his filter valves. "Do you think they'll ever come back?" she asked. Thrix considered it. "If we do," he said, "it will be in suits and peace." The extraction itself was swift, surgical. Each soldier was guided into the shuttle through a pressure-sealed tunnel. The medical team passed off final notes, allergic response data, recovery timelines. Dr. Roth handed over a packet of printed research summaries, marked Provisional Cross-Species Medical Considerations. Ver saluted a janitor who had once helped her escape a Roomba. Jernick handed Mara his Windex bottle as a memory artifact. Kel gave Miles a lopsided fist bump that nearly dislocated his shoulder. Then, Thrix approached Mara with a rectangular case. "I had this prepared for you." Inside was a folded flag, not human, but Vorthari dark green with a jagged silver crest and a thin crimson band across the bottom. The translator whispered, "Commander's token of defeated honor." "I don't think I can accept something like this," Mara said carefully. He held her gaze. "You stood unarmored in the fire. You taught me the meaning of strength." Mara swallowed. "Then I'll keep it." Thrix stepped back. "Farewell, Mara, of the Chaos Lungs." "Take care, Thrix of the Sneezing Fits." The shuttle lifted, gentle and near silent. As it ascended, a fine burst of sterilized vapor jetted out beneath it, neutralizing particles in the air. Mara watched until it disappeared beyond the clouds. 72 hours later, she was back on night shift. The ER was filled with the usual chaos bike accidents, flu cases, a kid who'd swallowed a pebble on a dare. A man came in insisting his smartwatch had possessed him. Standard fare. Mara washed her hands at the scrub sink when Miles walked in, holding a tablet. "You see this?" he asked, tapping the screen. The Vorthari Command had published Thrix's report to their academic council. The title had been shortened, Lungs of Chaos, a Field Report. It had already been translated into 17 galactic dialects and was trending on several off-world forums. "They're calling Earth a Class 5 unfiltered death sphere," Miles said. One blogger wrote, "Humans are either immune to suffering or shaped entirely by it." That tracks. He scrolled further. "They're proposing a diplomatic envoy, peace mission, with respirators." Good for them. Miles leaned against the wall. "You think they'll actually do it?" Mara dried her hands. "If they do, tell them to land in autumn." "Why?" "Less pollen." She walked back toward Trauma Bay 3. A teenager had tried to sedate himself with 2 allergy pills and half a can of Febreze. She didn't have the energy to be surprised. As she prepped the activated charcoal and took vitals, he mumbled something unintelligible. "What?" He groaned. "I didn't want to feel itchy anymore." "Kid," she said, attaching the monitor clip to his finger, "you don't even know what itchy means." And as she pulled up his chart, she smiled just a little. Because she did.